Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by the Atlantic City Airport. Plan your summer vacation now. Spirit Airlines is offering nonstop flights from Atlantic City International Airport to Boston, Atlanta, San Juan, Miami, and other exciting destinations. Visit spirit.com. Yes, plan your summer vacation. Adam Caplan is in the house as he is pinch hitting today for Jeff Mosher. And obviously, the NFL season never stops. We got things to discuss. And, I don't know, the summer vacation. You got a summer vacation coming up here, Adam Caplan? You got anything planned for the summer?
Which we always do every year. And, we went to the Outer Banks back in May.
Nice.
And what I will do probably take a short day before I go on my long training camp tour, which is generally 3 weeks at the end of July. And then, I get going there. And I saw 22 teams last year. I'm hoping to see more than that. It's always hard to see many more than 20. But the thing is, I'm going to go to a lot of these joint practices, which I absolutely love.
Yes, I know you do the summer camp tour. That's why I was wondering if you're going to get a little time off before now and then. Because it's getting here quick, man. We are into late June, which means next week we will be within 1 month into Eagles training camp. So let's take a look at some of the questions leading into training camp while we have some time here. Number one, I was a guest today that was asked these questions from the host. So I'd like to ask the same questions that I got asked to you to see if our answer, it's like Family Feud. Let's see if our answers match up here, Adam Caplan.
We have 5? Wait, are you going to rank them 1 to 5?
Top 5 answers on the board.
Right.
Entering
By the way, real quick.
Yeah.
Are you Rich Dawson here?
No, I'm not kissing you, all right? No kisses here.
Oh, yeah, we don't do that. Yes, not for the phone.
I was asked this question. I thought it was kind of interesting because I think you can make a case for all three guys. Who's under more pressure entering this season if the season doesn't go well? John Gannon, Hurts, or Sirianni?
Well, I put Sirianni third because the team overachieved last season. Talking to the team prior and during and after the season, they did better than they were expecting. I'm certainly not going to compare it to 2017 where, funny story, so I was texting, I don't know if I've told you the story before, I was texting with someone before that season started in the front office, and we were just exchanging notes and ideas, and they said, okay, so how do you think we're going to do? I said 9-7, and that guy said he would take that. And then, of course, they won the Super Bowl that year because they didn't know. Nobody knew how good they would be. Now, and ironically, the season before they were 7-9, and they had a winning record, so now they were 9-8 because they played a 17-game season. I think they'll be better. The roster's better. Now, the only way that I think, not that Sirianni would be in trouble after 2 years, but where people will start whispering, if they're not even 9 wins this season, if the players that they're expecting to play well, I don't see how the heck they're not at least better than 9-8. But pressure, I would put Hurts 1, Gannon 1A. I think it's very close. I think it's very fair. The defense was not as good as I think the team was hoping under Gannon. Now, you could also argue in Gannon's defense it wasn't very talented. There are no more excuses. The front office did a fantastic job of getting Gannon players and talent. And then Hurts, obviously, is the quarterback. You're always going to be under pressure as the quarterback. I don't want to call it a one-year tryout because he was a starter last year. This is his second full season in the offense, Mike. But the pressure's going to be on because you add A.J. Brown. There's no more Zach Ertz to have to deal with. Dallas Goedert is now the full-time starter at tight end for starting the season. The offensive line's fantastic. They fortified the receiver position. They have depth now. There's no more excuses. I mean, the quarterback's got to play better.
Yeah, it's interesting because I also went with Gannon. I kind of said Gannon because he almost has the most to lose. I mean, he was interviewing for head coaching jobs, and I equated it to, locally Greg Roman. I mean, he was the hot head coaching name when he was in San Francisco, and then he didn't get a job, and then all of a sudden, Harbaugh leaves, he's gone. Now he's in Baltimore. He's not getting a sniff as a head coaching job. From my understanding anyway. I mean, Gannon's interviewing for multiple jobs. If this defense doesn't live up to expectations after getting all these pieces, he has the most to lose in terms of his own personal career, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, look, you're going to hear whispers. If this defense isn't good, or we with our own eyes, if it turns out to be disappointing, there are going to be major whispers about what is going on with that defense, because you can no longer say that this defense isn't talented. They finally have a competitive linebacker group, at least on paper. So it's obviously more talented. The secondary, now you got Jaquaski Tardin as a safety. We talk about him, by the way, on tomorrow's show on Inside the Birds. We're going to talk at length about their secondary. It's our roster breakdown and intel for defense. And their defense's versatility now, they can play 34, 43, 5-2, whatever they want to play, they can do it. So there are no more excuses here. There's talent there.
Yeah, and then, of course, one of the side conversations that we got into off of Hurts is, what is the line of demarcation of success that makes you say Hurts is the guy? Do you get to the NFC Championship game, lose that game, and you're like, that's the best he can be, we need to upgrade that position? Or do you get to that game and say, we found our guy? Because you look at what's going on in San Francisco, Garoppolo got them to the Super Bowl, and they look to replace him. So did they say, he can get us to the Super Bowl, but he's not good enough to win the Super Bowl? So that's why I find, how far can Hurts take this team before they say that's as far as you can take us and we have to move on?
Best way I've heard it framed by someone really smart, an observer of the team, said to me, if the Eagles get to the playoffs and go deep, did they win with him or did they win in spite of him? And that's, if he's struggling, do they win? Do they overcome it because their defense was so good, the run game was so good, whatever? I'll tell you, the best way to measure this offensively, if they're throwing the ball a lot this season, that means Hurts is playing well. That means they didn't have to start running it again, because we know nobody wanted to do that. They had to do it to turn their season around. It was a good job by Sirianni. Mm-hmm. But when you spend the kind of money they did on Dallas Goedert, you spent a first-round pick last year on Devontae Smith, you trade for, you give up a first- and third-round pick, and you're paying A.J. Brown the contract, 4 years, $100 million. That's the contract that he agreed to. You have to throw the football. There's just no question. You have to do it to justify all of this. And the quarterback's going to have the spotlight on. There's no doubt about it. We'll see how well he does. But I could tell you, as we reported last week on a roster breakdown show on offense, he's had a good offseason. But what does that really mean when you're throwing 7-on-7? Well, we're going to find out in training camp.
One interesting part about A.J. Brown that we got into a discussion on is he is coming from an offense that did run the ball a lot. So he might not be the kind of guy that says, I need to have X amount of targets. You know what I mean?
Well, but you have Devontae Smith. You've got Dallas Goedert. They've got a Zach Pascal's there. Quez Watkins, who they really like, as a vertical slot. When they want to line him up and slide, he can do that. They've got plenty of talent now. There's ability here. They want to, as we've noted on our show, this staff loves Kenny Gainwell. We expect him to have a bigger role. They have the NFL's best offensive line. They have very good depth. I mean, people could criticize some talent on the offense. I don't see it. Maybe they need another running back. I mean, they certainly do actually need another running back at some point before the season starts, just for insurance purposes. But overall, Mike, there's not much you could do with this offense. Now it's just kind of roll the balls out in training camp. Let's see how they throw it and how they pass it.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4. Which new player is the most important to you? You got a couple. You got Davis, Dean,
yeah,
Brown, Reddick, Bradbury. Is there somebody else? But there's a lot of options here. That's a great question. Gosh, I wish I had like multiple choice if you line them up here by percentage or something. I would say Bradbury and Reddick, it's kind of – see, A.J. Brown's important because they had to do something with the receiver group, which was obviously underwhelming. But on your point, they don't need Brown to catch 100 passes. That 60 or 70 would be fine. Maybe he'll have more than that, maybe 80. But what they have to do is find more. Their pass rush was disappointing last season, Mike. That's the truth. Steven Nelson was disappointing. Like he's durable, he's tough. As multiple team sources said, they would have loved him being the third corner last season, but they didn't have anybody else. He had to start. For him to come back, he would have been in the third corner. He wouldn't have been the starter. He went to Houston, got more money anyway, and they upgraded with James Bradbury. So Bradbury, the early returns from what we heard have been pretty good. But again,
You just don't know until you get to training camp, because 7-on-7s is just not real football to me. It's a passing drill. There's not it's more of what we do in flag, which is a passing drill that you're not pass rushing. In fact, in flag, Mike, you get rushed. In 7-on-7s in the NFL in practice, you do not get rushed.
Yeah, they have a lot of options here. I went with Nakobe Dean, actually, and my reasoning was this. We haven't seen a real linebacker in this defense, and if he can play linebacker like we've heard, I think it's going to open up our eyes to what a linebacker means to this defense and to defenses in the NFL.
Yeah, and Nakobe Dean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a terrific tackler. And the underrated part about him, Mike, is he's actually a very good blitzer. Now, we've joked, it's like, well, Gannon doesn't like the blitz, so we don't even know if he'll do that here. We do wonder what Gannon's going to change in terms of philosophy in year two. But, yeah, Dean is a guy, and you tag him up with Kaiser White, your guy from West Virginia, and T.J. Edwards. When they go to 34, those will be your inside linebackers. You've got Reddick when they go to 34, he'll be a stand-up outside linebacker with Josh Sweat. So the great thing is, Mike, when they go to 34, which they're going to play a decent amount, they've got talent. Like, you're right. They're finally good at linebacker. Now, how good remains to be seen. This group has to play together for the first time, so we have no idea how well they'll play together. But, again, this is the no excuses part. There's no reason why they can't be better. In fact, they have to be better. How could they be worse? The talent level's better.
Yeah, well, and, that's one that leads us into our next conversation that we'll bring up here is camp battles you're most interested in. I would guess who wins that linebacker's got to be. So the three camp battles you're most interested in seeing play out.
It's a battle just because McPherson hasn't really proven anything yet. It's kind of a low-key. The third outside corner job, we're told McPherson's definitely the guy headed to training camp, but we also don't know if they may, at some point before the season, start signing a veteran corner. Because if this team if they feel like they're really, really going to be good, which could be the case, who knows? Why don't you solidify the roster and sign a third outside corner? So what are the battles I'm looking for? It's more the rotations. We just mentioned the inside linebacker group, right? It's, okay, Isaac Seumalo versus Jack Driscoll. Well, Seumalo's clearly the starter going into camp, but that's one that's a competition. We have to see how that goes. Okay, I'm going to give you one this is one I cannot wait to see. I'm a little bit probably seeing this differently than most people. The number 2 running back job is wide open. That role, because they only really play 2 backs, that role, based on Miles Sanders' injury history, is pretty good. This staff loves Kenny Gainwell. I'm very curious to see what kind of role they have in mind. He didn't quite have the role that we thought he would have. We thought he'd have it more in the passing game, and particularly explosive plays. We'd like to see more explosive plays, average maybe over 10 yards per catch. I think he was under 8 without looking it up, but I'd like to see that. And then also, how about Jaquaski Tart and Anthony Harris? We know Harris is the starter going into camp. Will they open it up? We don't know that they're going to open up the competition. He should, Mike, line up. We talk more about this on tomorrow's show, but we suspect he'll line up at strong because Harris and Tart could play free or strong, but at this point in their careers, they're closer to the line of scrimmage. So we're excited to kind of see what they do with these guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because you hinted at something that I said. I said the camp battle, it's not so much of a battle as I'm interested to see what the rotation on the defensive line looks like, right? How he pairs those guys up, what the fronts look like, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, what kind of elaborate looks will we see? And when will we find that out? Do you think we'll see that in the 3 exhibition games?
Well, we'll see it obviously in training camp practices. You're going to see the rotations. You're going to see whatever competition. By the way, one thing with the competition, it's the first year since probably 2018, or maybe I'd have to even look this up at 2017, where we kind of know of the 22 starters, I could probably name their 22 starters right now. Now, again, that is if we knew what kind of front they're going to use on defense. We don't know that yet.
Right.
We know what combinations. We just don't know yet. Seumalo, I'd be surprised if he's not starting at right guard. I know it's a new position for him, but the early returns we've heard are good. Where do you look at it of the 22 starters and go, I don't know? Like, okay, inside, if they're 34 front, who are the two inside linebackers. In the end, by week one, Dean isn't starting yet. We expect Dean and White to be the starters. Now we know that T.J. Edwards could be, if you're depending on the matchups that week. If they're playing like against the Titans, when they play them, well, Derrick Henry's coming to town, so you got to put your hard hat on. Mm-hmm. Maybe you see T.J. Edwards there more.
The last one I would have asked at me that I would like to get your insight on. They asked me more questions that I would like to hear your answers on, but this one stuck out the most is Sirianni the right guy? I mean, would expectations be higher? Not that they're not high, but like sometimes Eagle fans can be irrational, like Super Bowl team. If there was a different coach, like if the coach was Doug Peterson or a veteran guy, is Sirianni the unknown with this group?
It's funny when you talk about fans being irrational. That's why we love it, because their expectations. See, this is what coaches and executives will tell you. When the team's much better than expected, you get very, very concerned. Because you go, "Wow, I hope our owner doesn't. I hope our owner isn't expecting this." But in terms of Sirianni, look, he's ahead of schedule here, right? They made the playoffs. No one's expecting it. It was his idea, as I understand it, to change the offense to go from a passing team to a running team. That is really, really smart. But we need to give her 3 years. Great early signs, by the way, for Sirianni. But is he the guy long term? I'm not there yet. I'm just very encouraged with what I've seen so far. That I would tell you.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if the team struggles out of the gates a little bit. Because let me tell you, Adam, I know you know this, but doing this job in this area, the coach gets just the most amount of irrational heat in every sport. Doc Rivers is the worst. Joe Girardi is the worst. Brett Brown was the worst. You get rid of Brett Brown, you bring in a guy who won a championship, he's the worst. The coach is always the worst in this town. So if the team does not perform to expectations, is it going to be Sirianni's the worst, or will they go to the quarterback? I feel like that will be something. Now, you hope he doesn't get down that road. You hope it never goes down that lane. But that's what I'm very intrigued by, how much the fans warm up to or like or appreciate Sirianni. I feel like that's something that we haven't really found out yet.
Well, you can't blame the general manager for this offseason, because this is one of Roseman's best off seasons, at least on paper. We have to see how it plays out. We've had our criticism of Howie over the years. We've called him out when we've the sins of the sins of the 2017 draft. Donnell Pumphrey and so forth. We've talked about the Rager and Arcega-Whiteside picks. When it's been warranted, we've been very critical. But he's had a great offseason. Now, when we go to the quarterback, the fans seem to you would know better than I, being a host in Philly, just on the air, although Jeff and I will do radio this fall, I'm sure, somewhere. But on our show, it seems it's kind of split. It's unscientifically. It seems the smart fans know that Jalen Hurts has real issues with seeing the field well. That's just a fact from coaching tape. But everybody likes Hurts, and they're rooting for him because he's a good kid. He works hard, great upbringing, and all that. But the smart fans know, Mike, he was never drafted to be the starter. He was drafted to be the backup to Wentz. We know how that wound up. Never can duplicate that in the National Football League. I've never seen anything like that. The team drafts a backup quarterback in the second round. But, hey, he's a starter now. So you mean kind of like, where's the hatred going to come this season if it doesn't go well?
Right. Are they going to put the blame more on the coach or the quarterback?
Probably a quarterback, I would say, to answer your question, just because the quarterback in this town, growing up in the 80s here, Ron Jaworski took a tremendous amount of pressure. The booing was unbelievable against Jaws. Jaws took it like a man. You know how Randall's career ended here, not well. McNabb's didn't end well. Every market, Mike, you know this, in every market, the quarterback gets all the scrutiny. Now, if you're in Dallas, it was Jason Garrett. Fans made fun of him. It just depends on how the guy comes off. Now, Doc Rivers, I'm a diehard Sixer fan. If Doc would stop trying to take credit for everything and just own up publicly, I think that, because we have no idea what he says to the players behind the scenes, whether he takes accountability. But my problem with Doc Rivers is, as a fan, I wish he would take responsibility for when the team doesn't play well. Every once in a while, I'd say, hey, our staff needs to do better starting with me. He rarely said that, and that is a long-time Philadelphia, and we all have a problem with that not being accountable.
All right, football at 4 in the books for today. Don't forget the podcast drops tomorrow. Inside the Birds, InsideTheBirds.com. You can get Inside the Birds podcast wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on all the Inside the Birds platform. Adam and Jeff will have a fresh new episode tomorrow morning for you at 6 a.m. Andrew is here tomorrow. We'll look at the AFC West, and then more football at 4 to get you ready for the weekend on Friday. Adam Caplan, thank you, pal.
Thanks, man.
All right, good pinch hit right there here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.